Hello, lovelies. It's been interesting watching the blame game rapidly evolve, and by and large it's all as you might expect, but what really seems to have put the cat amongst the pigeons in my little corner of the internet is Donald Trump, at least in part, blaming video games. Now, this is particularly interesting, and I make the Ernst Röhm comparison because for quite some time people have, in a rather hyperbolic fashion, in my opinion, been blaming Gamergate for the rise of Trump, and we're at the pretty much the 5th anniversary of Gamergate, so it all kind of comes together nicely, and 8chan has been involved and blamed as well, so it's like this big pot, right? So here is Trump, who a few people, it must be said, out of Gamergate, hitched themselves to the Trump train, turning on this amorphous mass of online trolls, allegedly, that supposedly helped get him into power. Just as the naughty World War II era German party turned on the SA. Right? You would think then, we can hope then, that all of the kind of social justice warrior, pro-censorship people will now do a heel turn, and because Donald Trump wants to censor computer games, they'll suddenly and abruptly all be for free expression and free speech. Of course, the flip side of that is that now that the glorious Trumpenreich has turned against computer games, we might see a lot of conservatives who have, up until this point, presented themselves as being pro-free speech, suddenly turning around and saying, well, no, we must ban this sick filth. you know how it goes. It must be said, however, that of the Gamergate people who I've seen that have made a response to this, though I've had unfollowed or unsubbed from a lot of the further right-wing ones recently, and the more Trump-possessed ones recently, but those I have seen, those I have watched, those I have observed, the reactions that I've seen on Twitter and Facebook and elsewhere have all been shut up boomer to one extent or another. They haven't made a great deal of excuses for Trump, and those that have, they've been kind of feeble excuses, saying that he's just a boomer, doesn't know what he's talking about, he's being exploited. They still say it's stupid. People on the other side of the argument, the anti-GG people, seem a lot more confused. They don't seem to have seen any of this anti-Trump reaction that I've seen from former Gamergate people, probably because they have them all blocked, and so they're pretending that it's chirp, 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 crickets everywhere, so far as gamers' reaction to this, when I'm directly seeing the exact opposite. Yeah, it's anecdotal, but I think we all know how block bots and so on work, and how people end up in echo chambers where they largely see what they want to see. Now, I try not to do that, even though I have blocked a few people, so I think my anecdotal data is somewhat stronger than theirs. But they seem confused. Like I say, they don't seem to have come out either one way or another. Do they agree with Trump that computer games are bad and they can lead to bad behaviour and they can influence people's fragile little minds? What, or not? They seem to want their cake and to eat it too. Some are saying it's not games, it's gamer culture, like 8chan or whatever, which strikes me as just as disingenuous as saying guns don't kill people. People do. In this case, however, in the analogy, games don't hurt anyone, nor does gamer culture. But it's just, it's funny, it's amusing, and I'm surprised no one else has made the SA comparison yet, so I thought I'd get in first and make it obviously comedic and hyperbolic. Now, the kinds of people who engage in this sort of blame game, not of anything that has actually done anything wrong, but just to have something to blame, something they can do, something must be done. These are the most dangerous words in the English language, soon followed by won't somebody think of the children. But the kinds of people that engage in this sort of dishonest blame game are the genuinely clueless, those who are exploiting the clueless and grifting off them, and those who are both. But when it comes to Trump's actual plan to address gun violence, video games are only 1 point out of 5. You probably can't count higher than 5 because he finishes one hand and then loses track of that one when he starts on the other, but there you go. It's a 5-point plan. It's not entirely awful. There are some things in there which are okay. There are some things in there that should be able to get bipartisan support. So this 5-point plan involves 1. To create tools to detect mass shooters. They're talking about targeting sites like 8chan and 4chan where shooters and other horrendous people have posted manifestos and things in the past. Of course, those chan boards have also tracked down things like paedophiles, animal abusers, and so on. It was a big op on 8chan, I think, that outed Celebriando, the troll that was targeting Anita Sarkeesian, and so on. So that there's good and bad. I mean, these boards, they're anonymous, right? We don't clamour to ban Facebook because someone has, on more than one occasion, live streamed a murder, because it's not right to blame the entirety of Facebook for people exploiting their system to do horrible things. Yeah, it's right to go after them for the way in which they sell and use data. That's perfectly legit, that's perfectly kosher. But to blame the entirety of an open or a semi-open platform for a fraction of the people on it who abuse it in some way, or set themselves up as shooters, post their horrendous manifestos, whatever. It's just a place. It's like blaming Basildon Bond because you received a kidnap note, right? It's just ludicrous. But this is kind of sinister, right? Because what kind of tools are we talking about? Tools that flag people up for using certain terms or certain memes or posting screeds or whatever. Can it tell the difference between sarcasm and sincerity, between irony and sincerity? What is going to happen here? Is this like the old lists, if you took out certain library books you'd get flagged up to the FBI or whoever else? I don't want my door to be kicked in because some algorithm somewhere flagged me up because I was doing research for a horror novel or something, or a military game or something. That shouldn't happen. And we know these algorithms and detection systems and learning systems, they're just not there yet. Video I did yesterday, I had to upload 2 versions, right? One of them tripped a copyright detection thing on a snippet of a live performance of The Clash at a Rock Against Racism gig. And it identified the right band but the wrong song. I still got a copyright claim on it. It didn't detect context, it couldn't understand how this was fair use, how it was being used illustratively and transformatively and so on. And that's just a copyright claim which I can counterclaim, and it isn't going to cost me that much anyway either way. It's the principle of the thing. But when an algorithm is determining whether the security services kick down your door and arrest you, I think there's a lot more to be concerned about there. What's the ethics of handing over aspects of our judicial system, not even to AI, but to dumb algorithms? There's a lot of potential civil rights cases, I think there. So that's stupid. Point 2 is the video games. Well, we know the video game link doesn't exist. There is no link between video games and violence. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. I mean, if you went to Trump and said, do you think John Wayne movies cause violence, he'd probably say no. And this is really no different. It's just there's a generation gap in understanding interactive entertainment. There's no specifics on what he wants to do. He wants to end the glorification of gun violence in video games, only far less articulately put, of course, it being Trump. How? What do you do to do that? You're gonna ban blood? What? The industry already self-regulates to an extent and has already self-censored to a massive extent when it comes to sexual material. So while I don't think Trump will be able to enforce anything, I mean, free speech rulings have already overturned attempts to censor games. There was a big case in California where they tried to do this, where they tried to crack down on selling violent games, and it was struck down it's a free speech issue. So you'd have to alter the Constitution, apparently. So any attempt to legally control it, he's not going to be able to manage. But as we've seen from the crackdown on sexual content, or even slightly suggestive content, coming from activists in the left, the feminist ones, the industry will kowtow to pressure. Will they give in to Trump and a right-wing, capital C, conservative push on violence, as they have a small c conservative push from the left to censor sexuality? That would be the danger, I think, if the industry gives in to Trump. But given the political makeup of the current industry, this doesn't seem particularly likely to me. But still, that's where the worry is there, I think. His third idea is to reform mental health laws. Now, this is where I would actually agree with him, so kudos to whatever advisor fed him that soundbite. Care in the community is a thing that came through the 60s, 70s, 80s. More in the 80s, I think, in America, as Reagan did a big push to release people into the care of the community, out of the hospitals and so on, and it's been an absolute fucking disaster. It's been a disaster for the mentally unhealthy people who have been released from institutions onto the street. Whole swathes of them have ended up homeless, dying, drug addicts, whatever else. They are better off in institutions. And because the process is not the best, a lot of people who are a danger to the public have also been released. And while it's not a huge amount of deaths and so on, there are deaths caused by schizophrenics losing it, other people acting out on their delusions, their psychopathy, whatever else the case might be. So I think a return to institutionalization, and this is speaking as someone with mental health issues, I think that's a better idea. It's good, and it's better for the patients, it's better for society as a whole, if a lot of these people aren't just wandering the streets. But I would be concerned, again, that the process needs to be done properly. And when it comes to the United States, I would worry very much whether anyone is willing to pay the tax. And anyone in the Republican side, the conservative side, is willing to pay the money that will be necessary to fund the mental institutions and so on to hold people. And I'm sure there would very rapidly be scandals about people who are supposedly sponging off the system by pretending to be mad and so on. So I think that's on the right track. I just don't see anything realistic coming out of it. The fourth point in his plan is red flag laws, so that certain people, certain mental health issues, certain other issues, could be criminal record, things like that, red flag people, and then they would be disallowed from purchasing firearms. I think that's overall a good thing. I'll be worried about the implementation, as with locking people up for mental health issues. But that seems like a step in the right direction, and it seems like something that you should be able to build bipartisan support for. But you will get opposition from the NRA and the real headbangers in the gun ownership world, because there is a threat of red flag laws being used in an arbitrary fashion and taking away rights from people who would otherwise qualify. So, a note of caution on that one. And the last one is to fast-track the death penalty for mass murderers, terrorists, and so on. The death penalty is not a deterrent. Study after study after study has shown this. In recent years, a massive amount of people have been released from death row in various countries because the increased availability of genetic evidence and so on has cleared them. This has also happened in a whole swathe of sexual assault and rape laws. So, in my opinion, MHRAs should also be pushing for all these backed up rape kits and so on to be tested, because they exonerate a whole hell of a lot of people as well. But a lot of innocent people have been killed over the years. A lot of convictions aren't very good, and if you fast track the process, then all the kind of checks and balances to be absolutely sure that you have the right person aren't there. And then there's been problems with lethal injection and so on, where it's not the wrong drugs. going for the cheapest supplier, and some people who are supposed to be executed painlessly have been executed in agony. That's not going to help matters at all. So it's not entirely trash, and there's 1, maybe 2 points there where you should be able to get bipartisan support for something that will actually have a small, marginal, but real effect on these kind of mass shootings and so on. But things are so polarized, I don't think anything's going to happen there. When it comes to games, I don't really think we have much to worry about, because America has free speech laws. What you do have to worry about is that the companies might go along with this. So start pressuring now. Add it to your protests against the adult censorship. Say, I disagree with the way in which you have scrubbed the bikini outfits from the US and Europe regionalisation of your game. Also, I am deeply concerned that you will give in to the conservative and Trumpian push for censorship of violence. So when you send your angry emails, make sure you include both issues. Zang. And while I'm here, a quick update on the fundraiser. You have blown me away. You have done more than I ever would have thought anyone would be able to do just to get stupid old me making videos and writing games and other bullshit, and I've already raised over the £1,000 that I needed, just shy of £1,500. I'm going to keep fundraising through this week to the end of the week, but it's no longer as urgent, obviously. I can get a machine, and I can probably get a decent monitor with better lighting and so on to spare my poor vision, which will help a lot. But I guess the next target is 2,000. Any further money will go to future-proofing whatever PC I do buy. So more memory, more processing power, that kind of thing, just to make sure that I'm secure for at least the next 5 years on the same sort of machine. And any excess money after that, I will pump into the Zell Art Scholarship. It would have been Zell's birthday soon, so I think it's only appropriate that any excess money that I get go towards that cause. Zang.
The normal question, the first question is always, are these cannibals? No, they are not cannibals. Cannibalism in the true sense of the word implies an interspecies activity. These creatures cannot be considered human. They prey on humans. They do not prey on each other. That's the difference. They attack and they feed only on warm human flesh. Intelligence? Seemingly little or no reasoning power, but basic skills remain are more remembered behaviors from normal life. There are reports of these creatures using tools, but even these actions are the most primitive. The use of external articles as bludgeons and so forth. I might point out to you that even animals will adopt the basic use of tools in this matter. These creatures are nothing but pure, motorized instinct. We must not be lulled by the concept that these are our family members or our friends. They are not. They will not respond to such emotions. They must be destroyed on sight.